There are 4 simple strategies to help reverse autoimmune conditions. Now, autoimmune conditions makes up over 100 different types of conditions. Some of the ones I've listed here, you can see, and it's obviously much, much longer. Now, I started my work back in 1989, 1990, in the role of toxin exposure, things like lead and pesticides, and their role in autoimmune conditions, particularly thyroid conditions, where we looked at allergies and asthma, we looked at MS, we looked at a whole raft of conditions back then. And now, to me, it's very, very clear there are 4 simple strategies that we can all put in place to actually begin to reverse these conditions. And this shows up in the scientific studies. And that's why I've grouped them in this way, to say that, look, here is the kickstart, so to speak, for people. And I've already got a video up on arthritis and the gut and how it's linked to the gut. But if I give you the generic approach, then everyone can say, okay, these are some of the strategies I can do, and get them going and get them started as we put more information. And the 4 basic principles, I'll go through these, are tree fasting, exercise, gut health, and nutrition. Now, everybody knows about that. You know about gut health and its link and nutrition. Well, I'm just going to emphasize some of those issues here. And the bottom line is there are 3 underlying conditions that we know are linked with all of these autoimmune conditions: inflammatory, oxidant, and a group of chemicals called sirtuins, or these are kind of the living longer chemicals, or the messengers in our body now, that we've been a lot of research over the last 10-15 years on them, showing that they're linked with cleaning up the cells and cleaning up the mitochondria and getting the cells and everything working properly again, including the immune system. And so those 3 factors we now know, the oxidation, the inflammation, and the sirtuins, are really important to understand the basics of those. Now, I cover those in a lot of my other videos, so I'm not going to go over them, but I hope you do get some time to visit those other videos. Subscribe below, check the little tick box that you like this, and we'll get a lot more of this information out to you. But the first one is tree fasting, time-restricted eating. Now, I've already got 4 videos up on time-restricted eating and the benefits, and there is no doubt about the benefits of time-restricted eating and the benefits on autoimmune conditions. In fact, the list of conditions that I've got over here have all been shown to be affected by each one of these strategies. So of the 4, all of them have been linked with these. The unfortunate thing in science, it's very reductionist. So what they tend to do is look at one thing. So they'll look at tree fasting or time-restricted eating fasting, and they'll see that it has a benefit in terms of these conditions. And they'll go into the molecular and the biochemistry and all those other factors in there, as well as the outcomes. And as I've said, they've shown that time-restricted fasting has a benefit on these conditions, as does exercise, gut health, and nutrition. Because what they do is they're anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and they turn on the sirtuins. In particular, there's 7 of these SIRTs, 1 to 7. One is the most extensively studied, and they're found in different parts of the cells. So they all have different roles and functions, but number 1 is the one that's studied most. And we know that if you do time-restricted eating, fasting, and again, I've got 3 or 4 videos up on that already, so check them out. And that's not eating for 16 hours and having an 8-hour eating window or a 6-hour eating window, something like that, but making sure that you begin it in the morning. And I'll explain that in a moment, okay? And we know that exercise turns these on as well, and gut health and nutrition. Now, we know it works from gut health perspective because studies on fecal gut transplants, in other words, taking the poo from people who have done, for example, time-restricted eating or exercise, and putting the poo in mice, and these are primarily done on animals, but occasionally on humans too. They put them in mice, and the mice who have these autoimmune conditions, or the equivalent of these autoimmune conditions, start to actually get better. Wow. So that's basically showing the role of the gut. And there's evidence on the role of probiotics and prebiotics, things like K-fiber that I'm always talking about, but a whole raft of these prebiotics which build up the gut microbiome. And again, I've got 30 or 40 videos on rebuilding your gut microbiome. So I'm not going to repeat that here. I'm going to suggest that you visit those videos. I'll put some of the links below and have a look at how to rebuild your gut microbiome, because it's absolutely critical. There is no doubt. I'll give you a simple example. In the area of rheumatoid arthritis, if you want to create mice who have rheumatoid arthritis, one of the first things you do is poison their gut. So that creates the arthritis. Do you get the idea? So there's a lot of evidence linking gut health, fecal transplants, prebiotics, probiotics with autoimmune conditions, all of the autoimmune conditions. And the fourth one is nutrition. And in nutrition, while there are individual studies, for example, when you look at rheumatoid arthritis, you'll see that there's at least a good half a dozen what we call polyphenols. Things like quercetin that you get in onions and apples and so on, and some of the green tea extracts and a whole raft of these other constituents, nutrients that are beneficial. You've got the minerals and some vitamins. Vitamin D, for example, helps. But specifically, I've isolated one that shows up in all of these conditions that I've listed here specifically. And we know resveratrol, and that's the one that that's the polyphenol, that's the nutrient you get in the darker grapes, hence in the grape seed, in the grape skin, and red wine. But remember, there's alcohol in red wine, which is pretty well anti-autoimmune conditions, or pro-autoimmune conditions. Are not very good. And so resveratrol, added as a supplement, can have lots of benefits that have been shown up on hundreds and hundreds of studies to do with autoimmune conditions. As when you add all these together, there are hundreds of studies that link all these. And essentially what they do with each of these is that they first of all alter the circadian rhythm. So that's why I suggested earlier with the time restricted eating, having some food. You don't have to have an early breakfast, but you need to eat before midday. So I prefer 10 to 11 o'clock as my eating window. Light is obviously critical here. I'm not going into that, but obviously getting some light exposure for your overall health and well-being, getting that vitamin D and resetting your circadian rhythm, because there's about 20 or 30% of your cells that actually have these receptors or coordinators in there for your circadian rhythm. And they all run on the timing and they reset with each other. And so resveratrol, which I've already mentioned, helps reset that. Time-restricted eating, having some in the morning and eating up to say 6 o'clock in the evening and not late at night, resets that, as does exercise, which is better in the morning than in the evening. Anytime is great, but better in the morning. And obviously looking after your gut health, which also works on the circadian rhythm. Now, your mitochondria, they're the energy powerhouses of the cells. And if you're lacking energy, well, it probably comes down to these little mitochondria. And what we want to do is get these mitochondria cleaned up, getting them efficient, so you've got a really efficient energy burning system in your body that's using it and producing it and just providing you with all the energy you need. And the way they do that is the sirtuins in particular, these ones here, are linked with mitochondrial repair, something called mitophagy, cleaning up the mitochondria, and autophagy, which is cleaning up the cells. And again, I go into this in a lot more detail in my other videos on fasting. So the aim isn't to repeat all that, it's to give you a kickstart here and say, okay, there's a lot more information, check that out on some of the links I've got below. So as a result, you get the mitochondrial repair, you get immune repair, and you get an immune system reset. Now, what most people don't realize is that your digestive system, for example, and the rest of your body works on this clock. And if you're eating late at night, your clock, your biological clock, is telling your your digestive system, which runs your immune system, to say, okay, I can digest now, but I'm not going to keep your immune system clock going and timing and functioning properly. So you end up the first stage of dysregulation of your immune system. So what we're after here is an immune system reset. So getting our circadian rhythm, getting our timing of our eating, getting the timing of our exercise, getting the time restricted fasting, all built in. So it's all coordinating with one another and each other. So we've got improved circadian rhythm, mitochondrial repair, cell repair, and immune system reset. Now, what's great, as I said earlier, each of the ones I've just highlighted have been shown to reduce individually time-restricted fasting has been shown to reduce the incidence of psoriasis and the conditions and the severity. as it has with rheumatoid arthritis, sclerosis, systemic lupus erythematosus, MS, giant cell arteritis, Graves' disease, two of your thyroid ones, Hashimoto's and pulmonary fibrosis. And these are just some of the ones that have been shown to do with TRE fasting, but it's also been shown to do exactly the same with exercise. Remember, the scientists just do one thing at a time, TRE fasting, and they look at one condition. Then they'll do exercise and one condition. So I'm putting all of these together to say that they work hand in hand, and the research that I've already presented in my other videos shows that they do synergize, they multiply the benefits of each other. And so if you are then saying, okay, exercise has been shown to have benefits of all of these. Now, obviously, in a lot of these conditions, there's a lot of side effects of the conditions, okay? One of them is probably fatigue and exhaustion, lack of concentration, a whole raft of these things. So a lot of this becomes a little bit complex, and you say, how am I going to exercise? Well, it's a little bit. Always start with a little bit, and work with your health professionals out there to say, okay, what can you do in the time frame that you've got to be able to slowly build up? And the idea then, if you can't do the exercise, then start with the TRE fasting. Start with the time restricted eating, then start with the resveratrol, and then as you go along, you'll perhaps, hopefully, get more energy. At least that's what studies show. And then as a result of that, you'll be able to adopt the next strategy. And so we've got those, and we've got the gut and the gut reset. What we're after in the gut reset, as I said, I've already got a huge body of information, probably the single best source of gut health information, probably in the world, I'd like to think, on our YouTube channel now. So check out all those on how to reset your gut health. Because again, that establishes a link. Your immune system runs out of your gut. And if your gut isn't working properly, which is why there are often links with gut problems and immune system dysregulation, leaky gut, for example, is a key factor in a lot of these. And so what we want to do is repair the gut. The information's already available in there. And then finally, looking at these great chemicals called polyphenols and the nutrition side. And at the moment, I'm just starting you off with resveratrol because that's the one that shows up repeatedly in all of these conditions, just like time-restricted eating, just like the exercise, just like gut health. It shows up repeatedly time and time and time again, not in one study, but in multiple studies, and often not just in mice, but also in human studies now as well. So it's a win-win situation. There are 4 basic strategies to adopt. And the first, time-restricted eating. Second is exercise. The third one is gut repair, gut health, rebuilding your gut. And the fourth one is nutrition. And there we'll start with resveratrol. And so you've got a really great starting place. Obviously, subscribe below, follow all the other videos we've got there because they're spelling out the same type of things. For example, there's videos on acidosis, which is well worth watching too, and easy to test for because it's such another simple thing that you can fix. I look forward to you watching our videos.